Welcome to Ask GMBN Tech. This is the weekly Q&A show. You ask the questions and we give you the answers. Get involved in the comments section underneath this video with your questions for next week's show. Use that hashtag AskGMBNTech and, well, that's about it really, that's all we need to know. Okay, so first up this week is from Jude Chandler. Hey Jude, good song that. Have we seen any mullet hardtail bikes yet? And if not, why not? Cheers, and seriously enjoying each and every show. Well, thank you so much. Couldn't do it without you guys, guys and girls, everyone out there watching. Honestly, thank you for watching and supporting us. Okay, so mullet hardtails. This is an interesting one. So Trek technically did this way back in 2007 with a bike they called the 69er. Yep, 26-inch wheel on the back, 29-inch wheel on the front. Personally, I thought it was revolting, but it was a really popular bike, and it's actually got a bit of a cult thing behind it now. A few of the guys behind the scenes here at GMBN have had those bikes, and I remember very well, because I was a journalist at the time, when the reviews came out, and a lot of journalists praised it for having the smaller rear wheel, so they said it accelerated really well and felt really punchy, but the big wheel made it feel more stable and would just monster truck over stuff. Now that's almost the complete opposite to what I felt when I've ridden them. Now there will be people out there that disagree with me on this, but hear me out. So what I felt was, yeah, I agree with the little wheel felt good on the back, but the problem with little wheels is they don't roll over bumps very well. And that leads you to a massive problem when you've got a 29-inch wheel on the front with a 4-inch travel suspension fork, because you don't feel the bumps at the front end and you feel everything at the back end. I thought it was an awful concept, all 29 or all 26. I really didn't see the point. However, I totally see the point with like 27.5 and 29 on certain styles of bike, in particular suspension bikes. You could argue that a hardtail bike is technically a mullet style bike anyway, because when we use the term mullet, we're not referring to a brand of bikes. There is one called Mullet, but we're not referring to that. What we're doing is talking about the fact it's different on the front and different on the rear. And a hardtail, really, by all accounts, is business up front with a suspension fork and party out back with none. So whilst the front is going to tame the terrain, the rear is going to be all over the shop, and you're going to know about it when you get things wrong. I guess that's one of the attractions with hardtails. It's definitely one of the things I've always loved about them myself, that you've got to be on point and you've got to ride really smoothly to do it. So that's really exciting. But I think putting a smaller wheel on the rear of a hardtail, not a very good idea. And I don't think putting a bigger wheel on, even if you shorten the travel of the fork to offer it up against it, would be a good idea either, because I just think it's going to accentuate the problems that you had with those early bikes that Trek did. I mean, to give Trek credit, you know, it's a very popular bike. Definitely wasn't for me. I'm sure it would be for a lot of you that were out there at the time. So I wouldn't do it. But you have got me thinking about the mullet thing. So what about a reverse mullet? What if you had a 29-inch wheel hardtail and you wanted to make it more aggressive? Why not put a small wheel on the front and a long travel fork, and you kind of retain your angles a bit? You could go for slightly longer fork. So if you had, for example, a 130mm fork on there with your 29-inch wheel, if you put 27.5 on there, I reckon you could probably get away with 160, maybe even a 174. It'd be slightly higher at sag point, it'd be returned. Something in there. Watch this space. I think I might follow that one up. Okay, next up's from Lisa Rogers. Hi Doddy, loving the show. Well, thank you very much, Lisa. When you answered a question about gear ratios last time, you mentioned about someone asking about chainring size and how it affects your rear suspension. My question is kind of related. How does a round chainring affect the suspension differently from an oval chainring? And also, how does a 2x setup with round rings differ from a 1x setup with an oval ring? Okay, so for a second, if we just forget the oval ring out of this, and then let's just do this in reverse a little bit. Bear with me here. Right, so with a chainring size, with a single chainring, the optimal thing about it is you can have a chainring size that's going to suit your rear suspension. Now, if you use a typical, we'll use a single pivot bike, I'm just going to say an Orange 5 for argument's sake. There's one on screen right now. There's been loads of generations of them over the years, and pivot points moved up and down over the years. Now, if you have your single chainring on the front and it's roughly on that pivot point, you're going to have quite a neutral feeling suspension on that particular bike. If you have that chainring below the sort of point of the pivot point there, below the line of that, then it's going to feel like it has more anti-squat. It means as you pedal it, it's going to want to naturally stand up slightly more. Now this is kind of good in lower gears, but you don't always want that, which is why it's important to try and keep it near to the pivot point. If you go above that, then it's naturally going to bob up and down more because it's going to have slightly less anti-squat. Now the suspension will feel amazing with less anti-squat, but it won't pedal as well. So they're the two sort of things that come into it. Right, now, so if we go to a triple for a minute, a triple really accentuates this because you can have a big chainring, a middle chainring, and the small chainring. Now it might be optimal around the middle chainring, which means you've got two extremes. So the small chainring is going to accentuate the fact it's going to have more anti-squat typically. That's no bad thing because a gear like that, you're going to be climbing generally something quite steep. So the effect of having high anti-squat with a low gear like that, the bike's going to stand up and go. The suspension won't work quite as well, but actually that's to your advantage if that's what you're doing on the bike. Whereas in your big chainring, which is going to be above that pivot line by quite some way, the suspension is going to be completely opposite. It's going to be very plush, and actually it's going to be susceptible to bobbing, basically due to your pedaling and your body weight and the way that you're going to move on the bike. Now this is a bit of a bad thing. However, when you're pedaling a big chainring bike like that, you're typically doing it downhill, so efficiency is not the thing you're looking for. You're looking for bump control. So really a triple does work quite well because you go to either extreme, and in the ideal world, the middle chainring will be close to that pivot point, and ergo you'll get a bike that works efficiently in most situations. Now with a double, arguably you could get closer to that pivot point in both the gears. So it's actually even better because, you know, you could tailor it, you could fluke it, and you could have, I don't know, say a 26 and a 39 tooth, and your pivot point just about in the middle. So you've got a little bit of anti-squat on the lower gear and less on the bigger gear. But the downside with a double in this case is the fact that doubles, generally your higher gear, the big chainring, tends to be a lot smaller than it is on a triple, because you want to be able to use all those gears at the rear. So whereas on a triple you might have a 42, it might be like a 39 on the double setup, in which case if that is above your pivot point, then you're going to be stuck at that point again where you've got less anti-squats. It's going to bob around more. And the downside with a double here is you're going to be using that gear a lot more than you would be on a triple where you have a middle chainring to make up for things. So it's kind of like a bit of messing around. I mean, manufacturers are generally really good at this, all of them, of trying to spec what's optimal to work with their suspension design on their bike. You've got to bear in mind that even a centimetre in height of a pivot point that looks the same as the next bike, it makes a huge difference to how it feels. So that does come into it. Now with the oval chainring thing, now this is an interesting one. If your bike has a low anti-squat, it bobs around quite a lot, arguably an oval chainring could improve things for you, because the whole point of an oval chainring is to even out your power, the way that you lay the power down. Now we call this spinning circles because you're not technically spinning circles, but it's a good way of referring to having an equal amount of power at the same time. You know, where you're loading on a downstroke on one pedal, you might be unweighting on the other. But you're trying to sort of, it's like pedaling a round circle effectively is what we're trying to say, go to round chainring. Now an oval chainring compensates for the fact that typically if you're riding flat pedals, this is a better example than clipless pedals, you're going to be pushing more on those pedals rather than trying to tailor your pedaling around that circle a little bit more like you can with clips because of the way your feet are attached to the pedals. What an oval chainring does is even out, so you won't just be having a high bit of power on those two downstrokes, they'll even it because of the ovalness of that chainring. Now that will have an effect on your suspension, and it will definitely improve it. Now I'm sure that I've heard loads of people say that their bikes have bobbed a bit on climbing when they've used oval chainrings, because it's smoothed out their pedaling, it's actually improved it for them. So I think that would be the same for one bike systems. It would be the same in most situations really with the oval chainring. But don't go thinking by buying an oval chainring it's going to improve the way your bike handles like that. It doesn't work for everyone. I tried an oval chainring, I've got one up here in fact. Sorry, this is a massive answer. I tried an oval chainring. I could definitely feel the difference in traction that I could get on a 29-inch wheel bike when I ran it on flat pedals, because of the fact I wasn't jabbing at certain points. It smoothed out my power. But when I ride on clipless pedals, I could feel the chainring too much. Even when I got used to it, I was really aware of it. A lot of people that ride these will tell you that's nonsense and you can't feel that, but I really could. And I'm quite comfortable in spinning a gear. I think I've got quite a good hand on getting good cadence on the bike, so it just doesn't work for me. But I know people that swear by them. So hopefully in a roundabout way, Lisa, that's kind of explained to you a little bit about the oval chainring thing, the effect on suspension, triple chainrings and the double, and how it's sort of valid to your pivot point. But with all of that, take it with a pinch of salt, because you can't just look at a bike and say, oh, that's going to have high anti-squat and low anti-squat, because there are other things that count. Typically, bikes are linkages where it's designed to manipulate how the bike feels. You're going to find it's difficult to get that. The most common ones you can get it with would be a single pivot bike. Look at a single pivot bike, you can kind of figure out how it's going to feel at a glance anyway. Sorry about the long answer, hopefully that makes sense, and thanks for sending us a question. Okay, next up is from Aussie Rider. My front wheel moves in the fork dropouts. When I brake hard on my front brake, it's the left side that moves. I tried doing a quick release really tight, but that didn't work. I'd appreciate some help with this, especially given the importance of the front wheel. Yeah, you're absolutely right to question this. Okay, so you're saying it's a quick release. All right, so let's just get a fork down here. Okay, so on a quick release, this is a really old fork, but you can see you've got a quick release where your axles basically sit in here, and a quick release would clamp against there, your hub on the inside and a quick release on the outside. If your bike has a disc brake, there's a chance that a disc brake can help it move in the dropout. It wouldn't move quite as much if you had a rim brake on there, but a disc brake would definitely accentuate that. Now, something I think you want to be looking at, if I've got a quick release here somewhere, I haven't had one for a long time. 1 second, hold on. Knew I had one somewhere. Right, okay. So on a quick release lever, you need to check this on yours to see if this is the case. They have serrations on the nut and on the lever end. Let's just take those springs out for the time being. Now, if you look up close, you'll see it's got serrations. If your one's worn, then there's a chance it's just simply not gripping. And there's another thing to take into account. If the threads on the end here or the threads on the inside of the nut, they're not gripping securely, you're not able to tighten that quick release. And of course, not trying to be patronising here, this is a safety check. Make sure that the cam works properly on your quick release. They're dirt cheap, you can pick them up probably a £5. Now, if there is a problem with your one, so I would suggest, if you have got the option of trying one from another bike, or perhaps from a friend, you must know someone that's got one, try that to see if it remedies the problem, because they can, over time, just sort of wear down and they don't grip your wheel enough. Other than that, I can't think what it would be. If it was a regular, like an axle like we have these days, which are technically the same, but bigger, there could be a number of other things. It could be your disc brake caliper is loose, which makes it feel like it's loose, but the fact you said it's actually moving in the dropouts, hey, feel free to take a photo and send it to us if that hasn't remedied it. You're definitely right to question it though, it's your safety, especially with the front end there. Good luck, I hope you figured that one out. Okay, next question. Sorry, I've got to have a swig of coffee to keep me wired. Oh, I love my coffee. Next up is from Xavier Raguin. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Hi Doddy, loving the channel. Would you recommend putting a 170mm travel fork on a 150mm travel Foxy Carbon by Mondraker? Well, yeah, 100%. So I used to, I've had the Foxy XR, the original one with 26-inch wheels. Then I had the Foxy XR with 27.5-inch wheels, the alloy one. Then I had the carbon model, which still is in my top 10 of bikes I've ever ridden. Absolutely love that bike. So that had 140mm travel on the rear, and because it was the XR model, it came with a 160mm fork. Now, Chris Porter, who runs Mojo Rising, at the time he was working with Fox suspension. Now, he had one of these frames as well, and he'd done a custom build on a set of Fox 36s, and he'd actually taken his fork up to 180mm travel, and he convinced me to do the same. So he did a custom build on those forks. That bike, I rode it everywhere. I didn't race the Mega Avalanche, but I rode the Mega Avalanche course on it. I did a bit of a biking holiday with some friends. Rode it in Verbier on the downhill tracks in the bike park, and literally the only thing that was coming unstuck on that bike was the fact the shock was getting a bit cooked on the rear, because I didn't even have a piggyback on the shocks. The damping was getting a bit unstuck on it, and you'll know this from how capable those bikes are. So going to 170 with a 150, yeah, I reckon that's fine. It's not going to mess your handling up at all. You might want to just slam your handlebars a little bit just to try and return your position, or get a slightly lower rise bar. But I would go for it. However, I would double check though with the bike shop you got it from, or the distributor, just to see what the warranty score is on them, because Mondraker are famous with their XR model for adding a fork with 20mm more travel, and it's often the same frame, so therefore it would be okay. So in theory, yours should be putting a 170mm fork on it would be the same as the XR model of that bike. And if that's the case, happy days, do it. Your bike will feel amazing. Okay, next up is from Carl van der Born. I'm now in a position to go crazy on a set of mountain bike wheels. Yes, no budget restrictions, only weight counts. but they do have to fit on the new Cannondale scalpel with the Lefty Ocho on there. I'm buying everything separately is an option to me. Please help me, Doddy. Okay, wow, carte blanche and a set of wheels. Now, the problem, of course, is a Lefty in this. All right, so if you didn't have a Lefty, I would have said just go and buy those Syncross Silverton wheels. This is them on screen. Absolutely bonkers wheels. But you've got some restrictions there because of the hubs. Now, there are a lot of people that make Lefty hubs. Mavic make a really nice wheel set with the hubs around. But it sounds like you want to go more premium than that. Now, on my Canyon Lux, I've got a set of those E13 XCX wheels with the 28mm rims. They feel incredible. They're nice and light, but obviously they don't come with the Lefty hub. However, you can get those rims. So arguably you could get a set of nice hubs and build them on those rims. So that would definitely be a great shout. Now, I know for a fact there's a whole bunch of different people that make Lefty hubs out there, like Industry 9. They do the Hydra hubs, of course, which are really nice. But I have to say, if I was going to spend any amount of money on a set of hubs, if I literally do it, money's no object, it'd be Chris King. I'd have to buy Chris King hubs. So if I was you, I would get a set of Chris King hubs and get them laced up by the best wheel builder you can find. And I would either go for some of those E13 XCX rims. Up to you if you wanted to go for 24 or the 28. Ultimately, weight will be your thing. 24 is still a really decent width for cross country, although 28 is a bit more new school, so you could go up to a 2.4 tyre quite easily on those and have a good shape. Well, your other option, of course, is the NV M525. Now, I've found NV rims in the more enduro format just too stiff for me. Some people love them. I know Neil's loved them in the past, but they're too stiff for me. But a cross-country wheel, that is amazing. That's a really, really good rim, and they're NV as well. NV and Chris King. That's a combo right there. Okay, next up is from Gavin Gunther. Does how well your pedals spin make a difference in cross-country racing? I've heard that it does. And I've also heard that it doesn't. Loving the show, by the way, thank you. Thanks, Gavin, interesting question there. Okay, so am I assuming you mean a pedal that's not spinning freely, feels a bit clogged up, versus one out the box that's going to spin nice and freely? If so, honestly, if you put a power meter on one against the other, I can't imagine there would be any difference, because think how long your levers are, your legs, and think how long the cranks are that you're turning around. They're all much bigger than what the rotation is. I don't think they have any difference on making it any faster or slower with the friction there, but you will definitely be able to feel it. I'm a sucker for being able to feel annoying things on bikes. And if my pedals need servicing, or perhaps if there's a bushing in there that's cracked and you can feel it clicking, it will drive me nuts. I can't ride like that. Even a bit of a creak, you know, in a dry cleat halfway through a ride, it's enough to drive me potty. I'll actually put some water on a pedal so it just sort of vaguely lubes it a bit. You can definitely feel that, and especially so on a cross-country bike that's very lightweight, fast and efficient, because you're going to be doing more miles, so you're going to be more susceptible to noticing that. And also you're going to be wearing typically very thin-soled stiff shoes, which are going to amplify that and resonate that through to your foot. So I think you'll definitely be able to feel the friction, but I'm not convinced, unless proven otherwise, of course, I'm always open to this stuff, that you can actually notice that. I guess the only way to tell would be to put a power meter on it and see if there is actually any noticeable difference in friction, but honestly, I don't think there would be. Okay, next up is from Sander Bossman. I've seen loads of videos about waxing your chain. Okay, this old chestnut, right. What are the benefits, if any, and would you recommend it on a mountain bike chain? Okay, so on screen you're going to see some clips of John Cannings over on GCN Tech doing some waxing chain experiments. I've actually chatted to Cannings before about this because he was sure that it would be a good thing, considering what waxing the chain does, sealing in that lubricant and stuff. But on a mountain bike, if any difference, it'll be negligible, and you'll only notice it in the optimum dry conditions and in a very smooth race, like a cross-country style race. I don't think it's going to make any difference anywhere. Some people will swear by it. I think it's a complete waste of time. But I'm happy, more than happy, in fact, for someone out there, so one of you lucky viewers, to go, nah, actually, you're speaking rubbish. It makes all the difference of where waxing chains is the best. If you say it's the best, I will 100% try every method of waxing the chain to see if it actually is. And in fact, I've got one better idea than that. We'll put this to a test in a later video. So we obviously work with Muck-Off, they're one of our partners, but there's something really cool about this without me even having to refer about Muck-Off stuff. I know for a fact they've got an amazing R&D facility because they did lots of work with Team Sky and British Cycling to try and make the most efficient chain lube. Now this really, in mountain biking, again, I'm positive will make no difference, because you think sand, mud, muck, your tyre pressure, all the other stuff going on, I don't think it'll make any difference. But we could actually ask to borrow their gear or go down to their facility, because they've got a machine they set up and they run different chains in different conditions through it. I've been down there before and saw it when they were building this thing. I had a software engineer build something specially for this. In fact, I've got some old photos that are on screen now, and you can see they've got boxes and boxes of chains. Some of them are out the box, tested, some of them they degrease them, some they sonically clean, some they'll have wet lube, some will dry lube, some with sand, some with water, you know, like literally every sort of combination of stuff they test chains on to test the friction to see what lubricants are doing. And of course, being a lubricant manufacturer, they don't just test around, they're going to test everything else out there, and as well as waxes and stuff. So I reckon we could go down there and actually find out what really makes a difference in the off-road situation, because I'm convinced it won't make any difference, and I wouldn't go near it. But they might just say, hey, for cross-country racing, waxing is the shit. Next up from Uncharted FM. When you're describing the freehub body issues, you focused entirely on high-end stuff. If the person with the question has a cup and cone hub with the freehub body bolted to the hub shell, they're going to be well lost when they can't pull the cap out. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, totally called me out on that one. Yeah, so cup and cone bearings, or more traditional bearings, are where the bearings rotate around a bearing surface that screws on an axle, and that's how you adjust it. If you do have a hub of that kind, you'll need to undo that using a cone spanner. Now you could use a regular spanner for this. The reason you need a cone spanner is because that interface is a lot smaller, so cone spanners are a lot thinner to get into there. Now yes, you are right in saying that I didn't mention that, but also they're not that common these days on more modern bikes. Even entry-level bikes now, or cheaper bikes, are still coming with cartridge bearings, because they're actually, it's cheaper to manufacture the hubs that way, because that's one less thing for them to do. All they have to do is provide the provision for a bearing to drop straight in. They don't have to do that stuff themselves. It is becoming more commonplace to have cartridge bearings, but you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, I don't have anything to hand to actually show you. I've got actually a hub gear bike up there, but that's a bit complicated to look at. I do have an old bike I'm literally about to film with tomorrow, an old shed bike that I'm going to do up and turn into a decent bike, basically, just by spending not much money on it. And that actually has, by the looks of it, there's a good chance it's got a cup and cone rear hub. If it does, I'll pull it apart and I'll show you it for the next ask, just to show anyone out there that does have confusion. But yeah, thanks Uncharted FM. You're totally right in calling that one out. Nice one. And I think that's why we've all got such a good community, because people are pointing stuff out for everyone. So that's a really valid point. And I love that in the comments. I do patrol the comments every now and then when someone's asking a question, and if myself or someone else doesn't get back to them, everyone else kind of helps each other. This is brilliant. It's really positive. A lot of other sort of comment sections on other websites and YouTube channels, sometimes they can get quite vicious. I love the fact that you guys are all so good and helpful. That's what we're here for, is to share the information. If we can't do it ourselves, or we forget something, hey, we've just forgotten, we're normal as well. So just share the love and everyone help each other, and everyone has more fun on bikes. That's what it's all about. All right, so enough of my drivel there. Next up from Tomar Altman. I'm still waiting for the Voodoo Hoodoo upgrade video. If it's done, I think there should be cheap or second-hand parts. So that's the bike Neil's got over at GMBN, isn't it? If that's the case, then he's still got the bike. I need to get the bike off him, or he needs to bring it around, whatever works. I think he's secretly attached to it, because I think he actually thought he got a real good bargain with it. And to be fair, he did. Now, from what I remember, it hasn't got a dropper post on it, so that's definitely something that we would consider doing on there. It's got one by, as far as I know, so unless the transmission's worn out, I can't imagine we'd need to change that. Depending on how it's ridden or who it's aimed for, chain guide might be a good idea on there. Yeah, there's a bunch of good stuff, and getting second-hand stuff's a pretty good idea on there. Although I would never get second-hand transmission stuff, because that stuff is consumable anyway. You're going to wear it out. When you wear it out, replace it, and so forth. However, for other components, I think that's definitely worth an idea. From what I remember, the fork on it is a fairly basic Suntour, maybe like an XC, XCM, XCX, something like that. If that's the case, there's not a lot you can do in the way of tuning, so perhaps we'll look at getting a second-hand fork on there, and we'll give the fork a service and stuff, show how to service an old fork. I think that could be a really good idea for a video. Right, I'm gonna interrupt Neil, whatever he's doing, and I'm gonna get that so we can hurry that video up. So sorry you're still waiting for it. I'd forgotten about it, to be honest. maybe he should have dropped it off. I'll blame that one on Neil, it's easier. And I think that's it actually for this week. Some decent questions in there. Hey, and honestly mean it, thank you for calling us out stuff, because you know, we're trying to do our best to share knowledge. It's easy for us to overlook stuff. You know, we're at the bottom of the chip cone, we're looking out into the world of all this stuff. You know, so it's very easy for us to, you know, overlook these small things. So you're all brilliant, all of you, for watching. So thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Let us know what you think in the comments. Add any suggestions for stuff you'd like to see us make us buy, anything like that. Ultimate bike builds, all the way down to second-hand stuff. Anything goes really. And as always, thank you so much for hanging around. See you soon.